Morning and welcome to Daily Red Devil for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. Before we get into today's show, please make sure to drop a like on this episode. Let's try and see 500 likes today. And if this is your first time watching, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Bottom right hand corner, it's completely free to do so. Right, lots to get into on the show this morning. But before we do that, I've got a little question for you, and it's in relation to the transfer window. Now, I want to know one player that you think Manchester United should and will sign in the summer window. And I know people are like, oh, it's not till May, it's 3 months away. Teams are already starting to plan their summers. Well, they should be anyway. Most competent football teams will know who their main targets are. So I want you to let me know your name in the comment section. If you could only pick one player, would it be Osimhen? Would it be Gyökeres? Would it be Quenda? Would it be Cunha? Would it be a centre-back? Let me know. I'm interested to see. Maybe it's Ederson from Atalanta. We will start the show off with that discussion, and I will give you my name. I personally think that Manchester United are crying out for a goal scorer and a proper number 9. I think that should be the priority position for me personally, because if you actually look at our recent games this season, and even when Erik ten Hag was the manager, we are creating chances. We're just not finishing them. And I've said this before, that at the point of Erik ten Hag being sacked, we had the highest XG out of any team in the Premier League. But we also had the highest amount of shots that we missed. And it wasn't only shots, it was clear-cut chances. So I genuinely do feel that if we add a player who can put the ball in the back of the net, because, let's be honest, Garnacho can't do it, Højlund can't do it, Ahmad can do it, but he's injured for the whole season. We don't have anybody now who can put the ball in the back of the net, really, do we? If you think about it, Xerxes isn't particularly prolific. Højlund definitely isn't prolific. Garnacho's not prolific. Like, we don't have anyone. It's as simple as that. And it was the same last summer, even when we had Rashford, we had all of these players that, in the summer last year, I was still saying that we desperately need a striker because Højlund shouldn't be Manchester United's main striker at the age of 21. It's unfair on him. I don't think that he was ever going to be that player, because he was being signed as a potential. And there was always the risk that he didn't turn into what Man United thought he would be. So, yeah, for me, it would be a striker. If I could only pick one position, I know we need lots of players. We need a CDM, we need a centre-back, we might need a new goalkeeper, we might need a right wing-back. Like, we need so many players, I get that. But if I could only pick one, it would be a striker. I would personally go with... This is the hardest part, isn't it? Naming the name and trying to be realistic, because... Obviously, you could sit here and say, oh, I want Mbappe, but that's not going to happen. So it has to be realistic. So for me, I don't think we're going to get Gyökeres, to be honest. So I'll just say that from the off. I think the chances of Manchester United getting Gyökeres is very, very small. I think Osimhen is maybe slightly more likely, but still might be difficult. Someone like Liam Delap, that doesn't really excite me. He's a good player, Liam Delap, and he's one for the future, but he is still young. For me, he's still a prospect. He's not the finished article, whereas, the Osimhens and the Gyökereses, they're in the prime now. But if you said to me, Liam Delap's got 10 goals and 2 assists in 24 Premier League games at the age of 22, that's pretty good, isn't it? That's a goal or an assist every other game, which is decent. But I would probably go with Osimhen would probably be my pick, I think. We know that he has a release clause. Fabrizio Romano was talking about this a couple of days ago, saying that, let me just make sure I get the release clause right. I think it's £62 million is his release clause. £62 million. So, and the story said that Manchester United, Chelsea and PSG are all ready to trigger the release clause in Osimhen's contract. So, yeah, there's a deal there to be done. But obviously, we know that Chelsea and PSG have way more money than us. And usually with release clauses, you have to pay the fee up front, which obviously Man United wouldn't be able to do. So, all of the deals look difficult this summer, really. And now the only alternative is what you can do. Say he has a £62 million release clause. You could say offer to pay £65 million and not pay the release clause, if that makes sense. So you could offer to pay more and spread the deal out over a number of years. But I think Chelsea and PSG would both be in a position to pay that fee up front, which probably means that we're out of the race already. So I don't know. I don't know who we're going to end up getting. But yeah, the one position I think Man United should sign is a striker. Obviously, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. We need way more than one position though. But let's move on from that though, and let's jump on over to this story about Ineos then. So a couple of weeks ago, we spoke about how Jim Ratcliffe had told the team at Carrington and told the members of staff about Project 2028. And people are probably thinking, what's that? Project 2028 was their plan that by 2028, they would win the Premier League. Now, we've had this really good article come out from The Telegraph here in the UK last night. And it was the 1 year anniversary of Ineos buying their 27%. I think it was yesterday. But the narrative now, this is coming from The Telegraph in the UK, is that apparently Ineos are now giving themselves 10 years to bring success. Well, sorry, not even 10 years. They're saying it will take at least a decade before they think success will happen. And between now and then, there will be more job cuts. There'll be more stripping of assets, more, trying to sell youth players. It's mad, isn't it? 10 years. Absolutely crazy. But let's look back on the first year under Ineos. And obviously, you can let me know your thoughts on Ineos. Is there any positives that you can take from Ineos? I've seen some people saying they put 300 million into the club. They put 300 million into the club, but they got back shares for that. They didn't put money in for nothing. And there's this narrative in some people in the fan base who are still blindly following Ineos saying, well, the Glazers never put a penny in and Ineos have put 300 million in their first year. They put 300 million in exchange for shares. So it's not like they just put it in and said, have this money. We don't, they put it in exchange for a percentage of the club. So that's already been debunked, that narrative. There's other people saying, oh, they're going to build a new stadium. We're a year into it and we know nothing about the stadium. We don't know whether it's going to be a new stadium. We don't know whether they're going to keep Old Trafford. We don't know how long it's going to take. We know nothing. So the stadium thing is still just a pipe dream. That may or may not happen. I mean, it will happen eventually, but I reckon it'll probably be 5 to 10 years before we see a new stadium. So yeah, there's that. And for me, all of the positives that they did, they've undone themselves. So getting Dan Ashworth, I thought was a positive. They undid that. And then obviously there's the whole massive list of negatives, which I could just literally reel off in my head really quickly. Making people redundant. Maybe that has to happen. But the one thing that's really actually wound me up this morning is, I'm not sure if you've seen, but Manchester United organised a team outing yesterday. And it was an expensive meal out paid for by Manchester United. And also I think they went bowling. And there's pictures and it's the whole Manchester United squad and all the coaches. So probably about 20, 30 players. And then, maybe 10 coaches. And then they also got to invite friends. So there was about 50 or 60 people who went out for a meal last night in Manchester in a really expensive restaurant. And that was all paid for by the club. And I know this is only a small little thing to bring up, but you have one side of the coin where Ineos are yeah, we need to sack the cleaners. We need to sack the normal working class people. And then on the flip of that, you then see pictures of these players who are earning hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, going out to an expensive restaurant. We're not talking going to Subway or to KFC, a restaurant where they probably spent £100, £200 a person, with 65 of them or so going. I mean, just really quickly rough. I mean, that night out could have cost anywhere from 10 to 20 grand if there's 60 people all spending a couple of £100 each. And it's just mad, isn't it? That could almost be, I mean, it's not a load of money, but it's almost like someone's salary. And that's the bit that I don't really understand, And then when you look at the stuff like sacking Eric Ten Hag, cost them 14.5 million. They paid 10 million to get Ruben Amorim from Sporting. That's the biggest thing that confuses me. I understand that in some companies you need to make people redundant. That's just the way the world works. But to be sacking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, which they have done, and then at the same time be making such bad decisions that are costing you tens of millions, and then at the same time rewarding your players for failure by sending them out for a fancy meal and saying it's team bonding. Team bonding? What? I just don't agree with it. I don't agree with the models, and I think that, if anything, you're just making the players almost... I don't know. I just saw it this morning and I just thought, I don't really understand how they're putting this out as a positive thing, saying that they've paid for them to go on a team bonding exercise. I mean, it's just a bit embarrassing. But how does everybody in the chat kind of feel after 1 year of the Glazers? Not the Glazers, sorry, 20 years of the Glazers, 1 year of Ineos. Let me know what you think. How are you feeling? Let's see what people in the chat are saying today. The Real Joy says team building is important. I don't agree. Like, these players, a lot of them have been together for years. Why should we have to send them out for a really fancy meal? I just don't agree with it, to be honest. They should be bonding by training together. They should be bonding in the cafeteria, eating food together. They should be bonding by doing gym sessions together. We shouldn't have to pay more money to send them out for a meal when we're sat 15th in the Premier League and have won 4 out of the last 14 games in the Premier League. Like, that just doesn't work well for me. But let me know what you think. To me, that team bonding thing should be if they've just won the Premier League or they've just won the Champions League. Like, great, go and let them go out for a really fancy meal. Send them off on holiday together. Do something nice for them. I just don't understand it, you know? I don't understand how on one hand we're trying to cut costs left, right and centre. There's even a story that came out this morning saying that that apparently in the cafeteria at Carrington, they've like half the portion sizes to try and save money. Like, it's like mad when you actually look at the stuff they're doing. But anyway, let me know what you think about that. Maybe I've overthought it. Notar says, aren't Ineos limited about how much they can spend? As in how much they can spend on transfers, do you mean? Daz says you team bond in training. Yeah, 100%. That's what I thought. Melchett says, how do you know they didn't pay for it themselves? Because the story says that Manchester United organised it and paid for it. And they went bowling as well afterwards. I mean, bowling's not expensive. That's probably £10 a person. But I had a look at the place they went out for dinner, and it was like it's like £100, £200 a person type restaurant. It wasn't like they went down the local pub and had fish and chips or something. It was, expensive food. Fine dining. You're not going to send the Manchester United squad down to Subway to get a meal deal or down to McDonald's to get a Happy Meal, are you? They went to some fancy restaurant, of course. What else have we got? Right, let's move on from that, though, and let's talk a little bit about Quenda from Sporting Lisbon. I mean, for me personally, this is just more spin. This is more just stories being put out there to try and silence the fan base, but I think the fan base see through this. But let me read the story out for you anyway. So this is coming out from multiple people that apparently Giovanni Quenda has said yes to joining Manchester United and has agreed personal terms with the club, right? Great. But obviously Manchester United still need to negotiate a deal with Sporting Lisbon. Apparently Manchester United value him at around £30 million, with Sporting Lisbon valuing him at £50 million. There's still a lot of work to do in this deal. The thing is, I just feel like, obviously it's exciting to talk about players, and I really like the summer, because the funny thing is, right, in the summer there isn't any football to watch, and people start to get hope again, and that's sad, isn't it? That in the summer, the fan base, this community, everyone's really, really excited, because we're talking about transfers, we're talking about what might be, and then as soon as the football actually starts, the first game of the season, the mood just drops massively, doesn't it? But Giovanni Quenda, let's talk about him. He definitely looks like a real talent. He definitely looks like somebody Manchester United should be signing. 17 years of age, Portuguese international already. Obviously done incredibly well for Sporting Lisbon. I don't know whose position he would take. That's the thing that I don't really understand. I guess he'd play right wing back, I guess. I think he's been playing it a bit further up the pitch for Sporting this season. But yeah, I think right wing back would probably be the position he occupies. Obviously, then you'd have Dorgu on the other side and Quenda on the right hand side. So definitely would be a good signing. Definitely a deal that I would like Manchester United to do. But let's not take this away from the fact that, for me, this is just a smoke and mirror. It's a tactic to try and stop the fan base talking about the real problem, which is obviously the ownership, the Glazers. There's talk of protests coming up for the Arsenal game. People saying that we should empty the stadium for the Arsenal game. my take on that is I think it's amazing that, there's these movements trying to make change. But the biggest problem we have as a fan base is our history. And what I mean by that is, for every person who leaves the stadium, right? Well, there's two parts to this. The people who are emptying the stadium, they'll have already paid for the ticket. So the Glazers would already have their money. The same with the season ticket holders. If they're like, I'm a season ticket holder, I'm not going to go to the game today. The Glazers won't care because they have the money in the bank. They don't go to the stadiums. They don't care about the atmosphere. They don't care. Like, all they care about is money. So say the Arsenal game, it's sold out. If you empty the stadium, yes, there'll be less people in there, but they're still going to have the same amount of money in their pockets. They're not going to be affected by that. Now, if you say, okay, let's cancel our season tickets. As it stands at the moment, there is currently a 25-year waiting list for a Manchester United season ticket, which is crazy to think. 25 years. And it says that apparently Manchester United have over 120,000 people currently waiting for a season ticket. So say everybody who has, I think the season tickets is about 50,000 at Old Trafford. So say every person with a season ticket says, I'm not going anymore, cancels it. And then another 50,000 people are waiting, they'll take their tickets. And then say those 50,000 people say, okay, we're not going anymore. There's another 50,000 people waiting. And then those 50,000 say they don't want to go anymore. There's another 20,000 people waiting. So it's just mad. It's absolutely mad. You could empty the stadium 3 times over and there would still be people waiting for those season tickets. And that doesn't even include tourists. It doesn't include people who just go to one-off games. It's mad. And it just shows how popular we are as a brand. And that's clearly why the Glazers aren't going anywhere, because they know that no matter how we perform on the pitch, we're sat 15th in the Premier League and every game at Old Trafford is going to sell out. It's mental. And to think that they've put the prices up as well. Absolutely crazy. But obviously I encourage people, if you think that emptying the stadium is your way of telling the Glazers what you think, then do it. Great. I think it's a great thing to do. But obviously there will be people who want to take those places. So, yeah. Stefan says, do you think this Amarin out agenda helps Ineos and the Glazers to do anything they want and avoid fans' anger? I'm not sure, really. I don't know about that. I think Ineos have to stick with Ruben Amorim. He's their man. We know how much money it costs to bring him in. We know how much they spent on sacking Erik ten Hag. Natty says the only option is cancelled games. I mean, that's probably talking about the Glazers. I mean, cancelled games would mean points deductions, would mean sponsorship deals probably falling through. You're probably right. You probably are right there. But how do you do that? How do you cancel games? And obviously the problem you have there is cancelling games usually would probably then mean people getting arrested. It would mean you don't, it might be more police being put outside. It could be that you trying to get a game cancelled could then mess up your life somehow. So that's the big question, isn't it? And I don't know how you cancel a game in a way that's safe, legal. Obviously, that's the most important thing. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I know it happened at Liverpool, but then there was loads of people arrested for that, wasn't there? So, yeah, I mean, you probably are right, though. Cancelling games would have a direct impact on them because, obviously, if the game was cancelled because of Manchester United fans, the away fans would say, we want our money back. The sponsorship, they wouldn't get TV revenue for that game because it wouldn't be on TV. They wouldn't get... Do you know what I mean? So, I get you there. That would be hitting them in the pocket. But it's what the consequence would be of that. But yeah, you probably are right. That's the only real way I can think of that would have a real impact on them. Because we remember what happened after the Liverpool game, don't we? When we got the game cancelled. It was the first time in 20 years after the Liverpool game that got cancelled that the Glazers spoke to the fan base, and it was via a Zoom call or something, wasn't it? So, yeah. hopefully, let's just hope that we get a good result tomorrow against Everton. We haven't even spoken about that. I'll talk about the Everton game tomorrow morning. God knows what the fan base are going to think if we lose that game. I mean, Everton are doing well though. They're above us in the table. David Moyes has turned things round at Everton, hasn't he? So it's not going to be an easy game. Last Man United Everton game at Goodison as well. Everton have got 3 wins and a draw in their last 4 games. They haven't lost a game since. Let's have a look. The last time they lost a Premier League game was against Aston Villa on the 15th of January. And so in their last 5 games, they beat Tottenham, they beat Brighton away, they beat Leicester, they drew with Liverpool, and they beat Crystal Palace away. I mean, they're in form. Won 4 games and drawn 1 in the last 5. It's not going to be easy at all. When you look at our Premier League form, lost to Tottenham, lost to Crystal Palace, narrowly beat Fulham, luckily, with a deflected goal, lost to Brighton, beat Southampton narrowly. When was the last time we had a convincing win in the Premier League? I mean, the last one was probably against Everton, that 4-0. But even then, like Everton could have been 2 or 3-0 up in that first half. I wouldn't even say that. Even though that 4-0 Everton game sounds like we battered them, I don't even think we did. But anyway, I'm going to finish up here. Thank you very much for watching. Please do me a small favour as you leave. Make sure to drop a like on this video. Make sure you subscribe as well. I'll be back tomorrow morning. If anything breaks, I will go live. This has been Daily Red Devil. Have a lovely day. Have a lovely Friday. I'll speak to you all on the next one.